Now, if we look at figures of farmer tax, it's actually very interesting if we have a long view back to farmer tax. Basically, I start with this table in 1998 to 1999, that financial year. In that year, we had 153 farm murders. I didn't include the tax here, I'll come to the tax later. But 153 farm murders in 98. These are all police statistics. 153, 98, 99. And we, last year, 2019-20, we had 49. And if you look at it, the trend is always downward. In the late 90s, it was above 100, and it stayed above 100 until 2002-03. Then it went below 100, and it stays in the 80s for quite a few years. And then it went down to 70 in 1 year. That was 10-11, the World Cup year. And then in 11-12, it went down to 56. And then to 60, 58, it stayed on the same level, and it stayed on that level till 2018. And then in the last 2 years, it went dipped below the 50 per annum. Now, you will see I have a figure there with lots of question marks, and I said 36 for this year, saying that maybe this year we will go below the 40. But this morning, just an hour ago, while my power was off, I heard something on Radio 702 that some or other, and I could not hear. I was a little bit late. I was somewhere, and then I heard it, and I was rushing towards the radio. And there was some figure which was released just this hour or two ago of 30, that 30 people on farms were killed in June alone. In June alone. But then there must be a problem. Either that statistics is not correct, or the police statistics, the quarterly statistics, which was just released a few weeks ago, is incorrect. Because the figures released a week ago, and that's how I calculated my 36 in a very rough and tumble way. The figures which was released for April, May, and June, the first quarter, and this was our first quarterly release, the police first quarterly release, which I'm very glad about. But for that figure is only 9, and that is for April, May, and June. Now, according to this figures that just released, it seems it's the TLU South Africa, but I may be wrong. It may be the other agricultural organization, another one. But they release a figure for 30 people killed in June alone. Now, there's a big difference between 30 and 9 people. So I think we'll have to sort out this after this webinar and in the next few days. What is the real figure? If it's 30, then I'm extremely worried. Then we may see a figure which will go back to the 153 and even higher than that. And then we will be in a big crisis because then it really becomes a crisis. But in all probability, we will see. We will see what will happen. I've already spent some time on this, but I may refer to one other thing, which was also referred to in the debate on Tuesday. There was a special debate in Parliament on Tuesday, and parliamentarians, I listened to lots of their speeches and read some of their speeches, and it seems there was some reference again to what I, in the past, have said to the Human Rights Commission in the hearings that they had, that there is always reference to a certain highly questionable ratio. And this ratio says something like this. This ratio is deep in the hundreds. It is something like 160, 170, and it also sometimes differs a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, it is then used to say that a farmer's job is much more dangerous even than a policeman's or a police officer's. Not the men, but the police officer's job. Now, this is highly questionable, and I will show you why I say so. On the next slide, we see that If we take the 49 of 2019 and 2020, that financial year, which was released about a month, 6 weeks ago, those figures were, that figure which was mentioned there was 49. So you'll see in the table that I've put in on the numerator, the number of murders, I've put in 49 on all of those different columns. There is 7 columns altogether. Then as a denominator, the farming community. I have to put the farming community as the denominator. Now you should remember, when we refer to farm murders and when we refer to farm attacks, we include small holdings. About a half of our farm murders occur on small holdings. So about half of that 49, say 25 or 24 of those occur on small holdings. Now, I'm questioning if all small holdings are used for agricultural purposes. Many of our small holdings are just for people who don't want to live in cities. They live just on the periphery of the city on a plot, on a small holding. So that's already a problem. Now, that very high ratio of 163.3, I've done my own calculations. I've taken the 49 and I've divided it by a figure of 30,000 because was calculated on the registered commercial farmers. On registered commercial farmers. Many years ago it was calculated. And I've recalculated it because now the murders is about 49. And I come to a ratio of 163.3. Now that's a very high ratio. And that is much, much higher than police killings. And it's much, much higher than the murder in our population. But the problem, and that's my main concern, is we can't just divide by 30,000. Because we can't, I mean, the farmer must have a family. So you are a registered farmer, but you have a family of at least 2 or 3 people. Then you come to 90,000, which immediately takes that ratio down to 54.4, which is still high, higher than the general population. And so on. But you must remember the definition of farm attacks and the definition of farm murders is it include also the people working on the farm, the workers that stay on the farm, include those people plus their families, their children, their grandparents, and whatever other people who are staying with them on that farm. And it also includes visitors. If the farmer have visitors, and if it is a farm which is a holiday farm, you know, this is an in thing these days, you get the bed and breakfasts on holiday farms, then it will also include the visitors. Now, then we are going to 120,000 or maybe even 240,000. And then if it is 120,000, you will see that the ratio becomes 40.8, which is just above the national ratio, just above the national ratio, and just above the police killing ratio, because the police killing ratio is the same as the national. And if you go to 240,000 farming population, which I don't think is unrealistic, you fell below the national ratio for murders, which means that it is actually not the most dangerous job at all. Some of us have more dangerous job. Just to finish this thing of ratio off, as we find here that I worked out South Africa's murder ratio at this stage last year for the last financial year, and based on that population, the mid-year estimate was 36.3 per 100,000. The SAPS murder ratio was 37.4, which means, but that is now the total police service, the whole police service, all the members. And not all police service are in the streets. You may get a different figure when you only work with those which are in the street, which are operational, the ones sitting in office. But those sitting in office also become victims of murder. Also, those in the police station. We have seen police stations attacked in the past years. Now, farm murder ratio, and I have a question mark there because I see previous slide. I don't believe it is much higher than the general population. I think it is just in line with the general population, especially if we remember that farm murders are actually murders on small holdings, and that on many farms there are various housing units which are sometimes also rented out by people from the nearest town. So it's not always farmers killed on the farm. It may be other people living on the farm.